Roots and Roofs, where we explore the intersection of motherhood and entrepreneurship in the real estate world. I am your host, Mackenzie Shelton. Join us as we dive into the unique journey of balancing family life with owning a thriving real estate business. Each episode, we will uncover inspiring stories, practical tips, mindset conversations, and expert insights from others who are carving their paths in the real estate industry. Whether you are a seasoned realtor, a prospective buyer, or simply curious about the dynamics of managing both home and career, Roots and Roofs is your go-to podcast for heartfelt discussions and invaluable advice. Tune in and discover how these incredible women are building deep roots from the ground up while nurturing their families under the same roof. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Roots and Roofs. I have a very special guest with me. This is Loredana, and we are going to talk all about coaching and kind of her journey in real estate. And I just can't wait to kind of dive into this. So thank you so much for joining me. And why don't you kind of just tell the listeners a little about yourself and your story?
Hey, I'm so excited to be here. First of all, Mackenzie, thank you for the invitation. I am honored and I'm humbled. And I'm so excited that we're going to be spending the next half an hour together. And I really hope that what I'm sharing today will inspire someone to
Yes.
take, yes, yeah. And I think that that's exactly what you do. We're looking to inspire people choose their destiny. Yeah.
I love that. Yes.
Yes. So going back to my story, you asked me what my story is. It's interesting. Well, I grew up in Romania. I actually not just grew up. I moved to United States in 2014, which is, oh my God, it's 2025. So it's 11 and a half years ago. I can't believe, I mean, time flies. And what's interesting, so back in Romania, my husband and I owned 14 franchise stores for the biggest cell phone provider there, Orange Romania. And it was interesting because when we decided to move, it was, we were successful. Everything was going well, and we were in such a wonderful comfort zone. And it's interesting because we never, um, it's very hard to make that decision when everything is going well. It is
Yes.
hard, right? Because you're comfortable and it's so cozy. It's like you wake up in the morning and the bed feels so comfortable and you're like, oh my God, outside is raining and it's, and it feels, and yet you do it anyway. So it was a tough decision, but why did we make that decision? Why were we even thinking about it, right? So my brother had moved to United States back in 2000, and then my sister-in-law had moved to United States back in 2004, and both of them have tried to convince us to move, and we decided for our daughter, right, to build a bigger world for her. So when we did that in 2014, honestly, the whole journey was transformative. When we decided to do that, that experience taught us humility, number one, adaptability. It taught us resilience, and it also helped us see that we have grit. Right? If we think
Mhm.
about Angela Duckworth's definition of grit, it says it's the combination of passion and perseverance for very long-term goals, right? So sometimes I'm just asking myself, am I seeing the long-term goals or am I thinking in just 1 year goals, right? And what we found is that success starts in your mindset, not circumstances. And I realized also that these are some lessons that I've learned, right? Success is redefined, right? Your purpose is not. But the definition of success is so subjective that it's redefined. And I'm so glad we made that decision, even though it was tough. It was tough to come from a place where you are successful, where people know you, where you have influence, right? Where you're a business owner, to go from lead generating with companies and signing contract and coming to US, becoming an agent and starting door knocking. It was humbling to say the least, but I'm very grateful that we made that decision and that we followed through with it.
Oh, I love that. I haven't gotten to hear that whole story directly from you before, and that is just so inspiring. It actually makes me think of literally a conversation that I was having yesterday with my real estate coach. And she basically said, like, you're in this really good place right now, and you're going to get too comfortable if you don't start basically thinking bigger, thinking outside the box, kind of dreaming bigger and all of those things. And you're 100% correct. Like, comfort is kind of where we go to die, right? Like we have to be constantly wanting to grow and evolve. Where did you learn that kind of thinking from? Was it something, that you grew up with, or was it a book you read?
You know what's interesting? I was blessed, honestly, because I was blessed to be born in Romania and experience 50 years of lifetime in 20. And I'm going to explain. Um, I experienced communism as a child, right? When in 1989, I was actually 8 years old, when when Romania transitioned from communism to democracy, right? And when that happens, that's a big change, right? And then what happens afterwards, you experience a period of fast-paced growth, right? I mean, because you open the gates and guess what happens, right? There's a lot of growth, development, right? And I was able to see that when growth happens at a very fast pace, right? Imagine, is there enough time to create the right systems? No. There isn't, right? So it's chaos, right? When you and it's in anything in the transition from for example, in this example, from communism to democracy, in the transition of a business, when you experience like huge, rapid growth, right? It does come with chaos because you don't have enough time to audit your systems. So I was blessed to experience 50 years of living in 20, and it gave me so much perspective. So to specifically to say that my parents back in like when this transition happened with no business model. So I want you to understand that in the communism, right, nobody owned anything. There is no private sector, right? But when you transition to democracy, it starts to bloom. But guess what? Do you have models around you? No, you don't. Do you have examples around you? No, you don't, right? So my mother is actually a CPA, and they opened several businesses, and I saw them honestly opening businesses, taking risks, and failing a lot and succeeding as well, right? But failing because there wasn't any we're talking about projections. It's very hard to project. It's very hard to estimate when there is a lot of insecurity around you, right? You don't know where this is going. And what happens is, as a child, right? I remember I don't even know, like third, fourth, fifth grade. And I remember, balance sheets, and it was not on the computer. It was like on a manual, right? And I was copying from like a draft to a final document and all these things, and it helped me. I'm not a numbers person, and yet I I live by metrics. I love business numbers because I've learned how important they are in a business, right? So I think this is coming from seeing our parents taking risks, being risk adverse with 4 children. None of us had any student loan debt, right? It's a bit different in Romania, and yet um, they went through so many things and showed us what passion looks like. They showed us what taking a risk looks like, and they showed us what's possible, right? All my siblings were 4 siblings. Everybody is actually an entrepreneur, so everybody owns different businesses, and is just I was just blessed.
Wow, that is so neat. I also was privileged enough to witness my parents run a business. And even though it didn't end up being successful, I think that really set the tone for me as well to like where I've ended up, in the future. So yeah, that is so awesome. So coming from a different country, what were some of the biggest cultural or like mindset shifts that you kind of had to make uh, coming here and basically starting all over?
Yeah, do you know what's interesting? So again, we when we moved here, we kind of knew. So, being business owners in Romania for, I don't know, so many years, 15 years, 20 years before we decided to move here to sell the business and move here. Um, we used to come to United States and visiting my brother in Pennsylvania and my sister-in-law here in Atlanta, about a month every year, right? So about a month every year. So we were familiar, but you're familiar as a tourist, but you're not familiar with the insights, right? So what I've learned is when we decided to move here that I thought I knew a lot, and I realized that I don't know much. I thought I'm a lifetime learner, right? And yet you're very certain in your skills, right? And yet when you go into a bigger world with a totally different way of thinking, totally different business environment, totally different, what I've learned is there are commonalities, but there are also differences, right? What I've learned is that business principles are the same in any business. They're very transferable, and yet you have to have perspective, right? And you have to think about what are some transferable skills. And then I had to understand what were the differences. In order for that to happen, also what I've learned, so what are the commonalities? High level service. So we were selling services and cell phones, right, in those 14 stores, and so we were used to selling services, right? So one of the commonalities that we found is that high level service translates in any culture and any language. um, Care for people, love for people translates in any culture and any language. We realized that I had to get crystal clear on my values. So I actually spent about a year, and I'm saying this, I didn't spend a year doing nothing, just thinking about it, right? But I got intentional in defining what my life mission is, what my values are, right? So I got crystal clear of my values. There are family, people, integrity, and work ethic, right? Those are the four things. And to me, integrity is doing the right thing when no one is watching, right? That translates in any culture. That translates in any language, right? Family, it's just it's so those are the commonalities, right? But how do you find differences? I had to learn and develop this skill called asking questions.
I am still working on this. Yes, I am
I
not
think we
great
all
at
are.
this. Yeah, wait, yeah.
Yes, 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 yes. So what I've
Wait, hold on.
learned is
Are you a high D on the disc assessment?
I am a DI, yes. I'm a high D, high I, yes.
Same
Um,
here. Yeah, we don't like to ask questions. Get to the point.
yes, and what I've learned is I am curious though, and I want to learn about people, right? But I've learned, and I'm actually even today as a coach, even today, I at least 5 books a year on asking questions, like just on that topic, right? Because guess what? The more we train our brain to ask questions, right, the more we learn, right? Because the
Yes.
question mark at the end of whatever statement we make just engages the brain to think, right? And receive, right? So that was the mindset shift that I had to do. And like I said, I thought I knew a lot. I was never a know-it-all person. I'm always curious. Um, I but I had to intentionally develop that skill to ask good questions, right? Because there's one thing to be curious and there's a different thing to ask good questions, right? So
Yes.
that was the cultural shift. It's finding commonalities and figuring out what are the differences. And what I've learned is coming from an environment where everything is transforming at a rapid pace, like remember, like after, right? And you're going to see that in so many countries when there's like a huge transformation, everything is changing, right? And you come and you still do, and we were able to do business and be successful in that, in that environment, right? In a constantly changing environment. We came here and we found, honestly, yeah, are there things that we can work on? Of course there are. But we found, what we found here is a well-oiled machine, like a business environment, right? Where I came from an environment where I see obstacles every step of the way, came in here and the obstacles were less, right?
Sure.
Because they are less. I mean, I'm not saying that we have them, right, in business, and yet they're less than but and because they're less, right, and I developed the skill of overcoming obstacles, right, and thinking ahead. um I was able here to move forward faster with that skill.
I
I
oh
think
my
that's the
gosh.
biggest. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never thought about that, but you're absolutely, I mean, everybody who, grew up in the United States and has, lived here their whole lives, like we have a million examples of how basically how the machine works, right? And I've that's never occurred to me, like if you didn't grow up with that, it is going to be chaos in your, but to your point, like then you are learning to persevere and have that grit probably a lot quicker than some of us do. So,
Yeah. Um, because again, I think it's just a matter of what you practice. But my move from Romania to United States, I think translates to even if you move from a state to another, right? Let's say, and you have a service business, you have a real estate business, or you have, I don't know, you're an attorney, or if you have a service business, you serve people. So your database, right? Your business is your people, is your database, right? So when you move from one state to another, right? Where do you start? What do you do? It's very similar. It's just, the economic environment is not that different though, right?
yeah.
Even though it might be different if you move from like a big city to a small town, right? That might be different if you, but I think that a move, um, translates whether you move from across the continent or you move from, right, because the culture is different in New York than it is in a small town, right?
Oh,
And I
yes.
just said New York as that came to mind, but the culture, right, the behavior is totally different in New York than it is in, let's say, Dothan, Alabama, right?
Yes,
Because
right.
there is a huge, right? So I think it translates as people that are transitioning or moving for different reasons, right? Relocating for different reasons. These are some lessons that can be applied. Yeah.
Yeah. That just kind of makes me think. So my team actually services two states. We service Nebraska and we service Iowa. Okay. And Omaha, Nebraska is our kind of big city that we service, but we service a lot of these small communities on both sides of the river. We call it because the Missouri River is the line, between Nebraska and Iowa. And the cultural environment in where I live in small town Iowa is extremely different than, even Omaha, Nebraska or Lincoln, Nebraska, for example, is one of the other locations that we service. Um, so yes, you're absolutely right. You almost kind of have to be adaptable no matter where you are,
100%.
yeah,
And honestly, especially when you service people, I
yeah.
get the opportunity. I wake up every single morning and I get the opportunity to serve close to 2,000 agents and leaders across the country. And I think that this transformative journey that I've been through just helps me connect with people better and helps me understand them better, right? So that I can help better. It's just, I'm just grateful that we made that decision because sometimes we have to create, if it, we have to create that. It's, you can call it adversity. I don't think it's adversity. I think it's you make your world bigger. Yeah. Get
Yeah,
out of your
I
comfort
yeah.
zone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that kind of actually leads me into one of my other questions. So you are a MAPS coach. I know you have some other coaching certifications as well, but like what kind of inspired you to add that component to your career after you were a real estate agent? What's been kind of the journey with that?
Do you know what's interesting? Well, sales has been in my world. I'm a salesperson. I don't know when this word became not loved, but this is why I love sales. It's because I love people.
Hmm.
And to me, sales of any kind is finding a need, finding a solution, or finding a problem, finding a solution, and marrying the two so that you can help that person, right? So when you look at it that way, I truly believe that again, being a salesperson, came to United States, became an agent, went through all the pain points of restarting a brand new business, right? All the failure, rejection, all the, challenges, and it was more humbling just because it was a choice to go from success back to, and I'm like, what am I doing?
Yes.
Um, but shortly after I went through all that pain, the story, I mean, transformed, changed, because I met with my broker at the time, and I was asking a question about a buyer brokerage agreement, and I was asking many questions. Remember when I told you that I started to, yes, I was asking many questions, and to me, is a natural thing to ask questions, but it's one thing to ask a question, and it's a different thing to ask a good question, right? So I intentionally started to work on that skill. And then my broker at the time, her name is Melba, she said, "Look, that problem is easy to solve, right?" And by the way, I didn't know. I was like, "Oh my God, this is a contract that I signed. I need to fulfill my obligations and whatever." And which I do, because remember, integrity is one of the values that I have.
Hmm.
So she said, well, that problem is easy to solve, but have you ever thought about leadership? And I said, well, Melba, I don't know what to say about that because I heard that if you get a job, I have never had a job in my life. Because, by the way, we opened our first business when I was 20. My husband and I got married when I was 21. So it was, and I said, I never had a job in my life. And as a matter of fact, I'm not willing to just have 10 days off a year. And I heard that that's the case. And Melba said, well, let's not talk about that. That's not necessarily the case. Let's talk a little bit of, have you thought about it? So she did such a great job explaining the vision and the mission of the market center and so on and so forth. I didn't know a lot on running an office. I knew a lot about business, but I didn't
Hmm.
know a lot about the, right? And when I told her my background, she's like, "Oh my God, you would be perfect." So, took me a weekend. She said, "Look, I'm going to explain to you what the opportunity is about." It was a director of agent services at the time. And she said, I'm going to explain to you what the opportunity is about and where this can go. And then don't answer right now. Just go home and we can talk on Monday. So came home, talked to my husband, and we said, okay, what did we need to be successful in Romania, right? And what is it that you love doing? My husband asked me, right? And we realized that what I loved doing was helping our salespeople succeed, right? Because in so many stores, you have a lot of salespeople, and that's what I was drawn to, developing them, like attracting, right? I was doing all the hiring, all the, unfortunately, letting go,
Yeah.
all the, yes, um, but also developing the people. And that's what brought me joy. And also we said, okay, um, what do we want to do? Do we want to build a sales business, or do we want to also, right, build a business, but make an impact, right?
Yeah.
On the leadership side. So, long story short, decided to accept the position. And I remember that Melba took me to lunch and she said, "Where do you want to be 5 years from now?" I said, "Well, I'm going to run this office. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, that's how far I can see." And we did that, and it took me actually less than 5 years. I needed to go through that transformation. I was ready business wise. I did not have the technical skills to run
Sure.
it the way it needed to be run. And that office became number one in profitability in the world, which is, I'm very grateful that I got the opportunity to be surrounded by amazing leaders that helped me. I mean, they really put a stamp on my development in leadership, like Aubrey Bailey, Andy Peters, Leslie Peters, right? So these are people that, and oh my goodness, like Lynn Tortorigi, my MCA for the whole period of time, she is just extraordinary. I mean, honestly, she's just extraordinary. I cannot tell you how much I've learned from her, and she's amazing. Um, but going back to that, I had to go through that experience. And what I realized was I was taking all these classes, I was coaching and consulting agents at a high level. And I had on my 411, on my goals, right, for about 4 or 5 years to become a certified MAPS coach, right? And to become one, it took me, I don't even know, like 3 years or so of
Mhm.
training and going through Red Shirt and going through all those certifications. And I'm so grateful that I did because I get the opportunity to actually fulfill my life mission. Um, and do it in a professional way, not a I wanna be way. And right, it's just it helped me become the better version of myself to truly be able to help people.
That is just so cool. I it's interesting. We are both part of the inner circle with Diana Kokoska and John Maxwell. And every single person that I've had the opportunity to talk to, they just absolutely like you like lit up when you were just talking about the opportunity to like help people and develop people and grow people and all those things. And it is just so neat that I get to now sit in rooms with people who want those same things that I do. And it's not something tangible, right? It's not like I want to make $1 million, right? It's like I want to literally help people be the best version of themselves. Oh,
Yeah.
like
You know
I feel,
what's interesting that you said that it's not tangible. Like I remember when how my brain works when my mother, started me at a young age to just copy like financials from one sheet to like manually.
yeah,
So to me, I have to have a number. And even in transforming lives, I have to have a number. So what does that look like? So then what happened, I became passionate about developing millionaires. But this is why. Nothing to
sure.
do with the money. It's the where that journey takes you. So this is what I found, and I actually called myself, because when I call myself something, I push myself to do it, right? Because if I say I'm going to do something, I'm just going to do it. Integrity, right? Um, and I called myself a millionaire maker when I became a TL in 2019. And I said, okay, in our market center in 2019, we had the first agent who hit $1 million in commissions in a year, right? And I said, my goal is to help develop 10 in the next 3 years, and then move it forward. So we did 12 in the
Oh
following
my
4 years.
gosh.
But this is what I've learned, and it gives me chills. And I'm so passionate about, I mean, honestly, I'm passionate about developing millionaires, but this is why. What I've learned is in our environment, right? And I'm going to say a very high income, but I'm going to say it because that's the point where you really have to be very intentional with putting yourself out of your comfort zone. And that's the hardest, right? So, a household that earns in our area, right, where we live right now, that earns about $500,000 a year, right, which is already like top 1% if you look at, right, they can buy whatever house they want to. Would you agree?
Yes.
They can drive whatever cars they want to. They can pay for whatever colleges their kids want to go to. They can invest in a few properties a year. Would you agree? They
Yes.
can go on any travel they want to. They can help their immediate families. They can do everything that they need and want.
Yeah.
right? And again,
Mhm.
I know I said it, it's a high, right? But this is what happens. That's where people stop. And yet, very few people make the decision to go through the pain of transformation, right? And break through that level and decide that they want to make $1 million. And when I sit down with these extraordinary people that want more and are willing to do what it takes, is when they set goals, is not about them, it's about the impact that they make. I'll give you an example. One of the agents that I'm so proud of, um, their goal is that every agent on their team is in the top 20, not 20%, in the top 20 in the market center. Their
Wow.
goal is to impact their lives, not to just help them make 50, 60, $70,000 a year, but to make 200, 300, right? Is to truly, truly build a business that impact, that changes somebody's life, like impacts
Yeah.
it in a big way. And it's interesting to see how these people set goals, right? So first we have to get to that level, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very fortunate that Leslie Peters and I both share the same passion. And we developed this MREA Masters program, right? Where we take an agent that from a certain level of production, there are some qualifications, and we help them go through that journey. Um, and I'm telling you, it brings me so much joy, right? You know the four quadrants of Kiyosaki, right? And my
Yes.
passion, I found that my passion, again, what I know how to do is business, right? And real estate. My passion is to help people transition from entrepreneurship to business ownership. I really love that.
Yeah.
And that's how I can actually fulfill my life mission.
Ah. So it's really cool to hear you say that like you're getting to coach people like that. Like I told you before we actually got on here, I'm not really in my local area surrounded by a lot of people having conversations like this. And I'm very fortunate to have a real estate coach. She's actually out of Florida, but she's like kind of the one person outside of the inner circle that I get to have these kind of conversations with. And one of my big goals now, we're in kind of a lower income area, right? One of my big goals is for every single person on my team to make six figures a year, right? Net, and it's just so cool that like I set that goal 3 years ago and I'm actually like personally seeing it. It's really hard to explain like into words like how it's not like personally gratifying for me, right? To see people succeed at that level, but it's really gratifying to like watch them complete. Like a couple people on my team have completely changed their entire lives just by being able to do things like that, you know?
And that's what makes you special, honestly, because and that's how you love people, right? And by the way, even being a coach, right? When you set big goals for someone, you better deliver for yourself, because if you don't, you lose validity, right? So,
Yes.
um, it's interesting that you said that. So to me, and that's why, like I said, I had to put a number around it. And this is what I believe, depending on what area do you live in, what success looks like, that success gets redefined, right? That's a
Oh
lesson that
yeah.
I've learned, right? Your success gets redefined many times. So what does that look like, right? And what I found is in my journey, right, that I'm going to stick to that. I'm going to stick to developing millionaires, developing millionaire leaders, right? Because now through MAPS coaching, I'm actually coaching OPs, I'm coaching team leaders, and I really want them to own $1 million businesses. I want every market center that I coach to share $1 million back with their agents, right? Now, obviously it's a journey that it's easy to say, hard to do, right?
Yeah.
And there's so much however, what I've learned is, remember when I said we had the first one, when you open the door and you focus on that, right? That who do you have to become to be able to help elevate the businesses that you're impacting through your coaching, right? And that's why I became an NLP coach, right? And I wouldn't say NLP coach because I attended the NLP course twice, because I just wanted to raise my my coaching skills.
Sure.
Then John Maxwell coach, right? I am a follower of John Maxwell. I mean, John, I think everything he says needs to be written down, right? The same with Diana Kokoska, right? I attended her, right? Also with MAPS coaching, I mean, the being able to my personal coach that I've had for, oh my goodness, since 2016, Matt Teeter. He has been such a huge part of my transformation and growth and all of it. Um, but I realized that it starts with you, right? And it starts with me. And my biggest fear is honestly the law of the lid. And I said it with when I had a conversation with Diana, right? It's making sure that I constantly increase my validity by raising my skills first,
Yes.
to not
Yeah.
be a lid to anyone.
Oh, this has been such a good conversation. Can I ask you one last question?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I didn't even get to have my questions and I like yeah, I know all of my listeners are just going to love this conversation so much. So, I know you've kind of, built this life and career kind of almost twice over at this point. So, what does resilience mean to you and how are you teaching that to the people that you are coaching? Because like you said, it's easy to say one thing, but actually doing it and building the skills to get past all of the adversity is another.
I love that. Well, no, but now you gave me a fresh perspective. You said you've built this twice now, and I never thought about, I mean, honestly, I never thought about it this way. Because, you think about it as in a continuous way. But yeah, when
Yeah.
you start over twice, I think it's kind of that. Yes. This is what resilience means to me. It's such a good question. I don't understand the meaning of the word no. And honestly, the person who highlighted that for me is Melba, right? So what I've learned, I've learned through my experience, there are two types of people in this world, right? And we're all one or the other, right? We're one or the other. Now, can you swap? Let me explain who the people are, and then I'll explain how you can swap. So the number one person is a person that says, no, this is why. Okay, I'm going to pause right here. Every time, even in your household, when the other person comes in, right, your spouse comes in and says, oh my God, I'm thinking about doing this. I'm thinking us to do this. Oh, honey, I don't think it's going to work. This is why. Or, yes, let's do it without even thinking about it. So, what is the first thought that comes to mind, right? Is it, oh my goodness, is it the obstacle or is it the opportunity? And there are people, right, that say, yes, how? So know why and yes, how? And I'm going to ask you, everybody there listening, what type of person are you? There's no good or bad, by the way. We need both because we need balance in our world, right? But what's interesting, what I've learned is I used to be a know why person. And this is why.
Interesting.
It's interesting. Yes, I used to be an OI person. And it's interesting because we transformed, right? So I remember I mean, when we opened our businesses, I mean, we were 21. I went, oh my goodness. I mean, the maturity, talking about whatever. Um,
Yeah.
my husband is 7 years older than I am, so he was a little bit more mature than I was. So he was moving faster than I did in the
Mhm.
beginning. And I remember he used to come home and he's like, I signed a new lease agreement. I'm so excited. We're going to open another store in XYZ city. I'm like, no, do you understand? We haven't wrapped up this one yet. And I'm working on this and the 3016 and all of the. So now looking back, right? Now, what's beautiful in our family is that the we're shifting now. Oh, we're doing this. Let's go. And he's like, let's pause for a minute. Because again, I'm a high D. And in our family, he is the visionary. I'm the implementer, but I am also a visionary. So we dream together, we plan
Mhm.
together, but the person that actually, obviously, we work together, but the person that makes it happen, right, is the person that moves the car, keeps the car running, right? Um, so how can you become on the other side. And I would say being curious. I would say what life taught me is that to be focused more on opportunities instead of obstacles. Remember, it's opportunity versus obstacles. And now, and to be risk adverse, right? Seeing my parents getting up, I mean, in that time, I mean, getting a loan, right? A business line of credit with, again, no predictions, with 40% interest in that time. And within
Oh,
6 months, it turns into 120% interest.
oh
Seeing
my goodness.
inflation, like I said, there's a lot of growth, but there's also a lot of chaos in the meantime. Right now,
Mhm.
it's very stable because this was like 40 years, like 1989, like whatever, how many years ago. And seeing all those transformation, or seeing like inflation going from whatever 3%, what's 2%, what's normal, to going to the point of the government having to cut zeros from, does that make sense? From the
Oh yeah.
currency.
Yep.
So I, like I said, I didn't think that way, but I'm so blessed that I've had the opportunity to experience it. So what I would say, resilience, keep going, have a crystal clear understanding of what your life purpose is, and be a yes how person. How do I get there? How do I get there? Is this an obstacle? How do I remove the obstacle? How do I, right? And
Yeah.
is this obstacle just a simple opportunity to move forward faster? What is this obstacle teaching me, right? And I think that when you get, I think resilience grows when you know exactly where you want to go long term. And in 2019, I created my 12 years GPS, right? My 12 years goals, right?
Wow.
And I look at it and I'm like, oh my God. I mean, yes, there's some that needs to be updated because but there's a lot. I haven't changed my trajectory, right? I've stayed on track. And what I've learned also is loyalty is a big thing for me. But long term, there's so many shiny objects around us. Stick where you're at.
Yeah.
Do the best you can with what you have. Now, if you outgrow an environment, make sure you've outgrown it, right? And however, constantly seek to learn. So I think that resilience grows when you have a crystal clear image of where you want to go.
That is so wonderful. It really does kind of make, when you said yes, how instead of like no, why. Uh, I am definitely going to like imprint that in my brain. I wouldn't say I'm always a no why person. I do tend to like want to look for the opportunity. But when doubt creeps in, usually with my own growth, right? That's when we tend to be know why people, right? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that is just such, yeah,
Yeah, well,
I'm
that's a
hanging on to
wonderful
that one.
I love it.
Well, Loredana, thank you so much for coming on and imparting your wisdom and knowledge onto everybody. This has been such a good conversation. I know that my listeners are going to learn something from this. So thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me and everybody who listens to my podcasts. And maybe I'll bring you back on some other time and we can
I'm
talk
happy.
more about really cool stuff. So
I'm happy to. Again, I'm honored. It's been a pleasure. I hope that it added some inspiration, it made an impact. And again, all I am is a package of small failures that I've learned from and kept moving forward.
love that. Love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to Roots and Roofs podcast today. If you loved today's episode, please let me know. I love hearing from you on Instagram and Facebook, so feel free to send me a DM or tag me in your stories so I can share it too. If you're looking for more information about today's topic, please visit my website, mahoganyacres.com, and all of the information that is listed in the show notes below. Until next time.